Hedy Lamarr was often hailed as the most beautiful woman in the world, but her story was about so much more than her striking looks. Alongside her successful Hollywood career, Lamarr became a visionary, creating groundbreaking technology that laid the foundation for innovations like Wi-Fi. With all that to her name, it might be hard to imagine that her personal life was anything but glamorous, yet this iconic figure had a darker side. Born on November 9, 1914, in Vienna, Austria, Lamarr entered the world as Hedwig Eva Marie Kiesler. Her father, Emil, was a prosperous bank director, while her mother, Gertrude, was a concert pianist, hailing from Budapest. Lamarr's early years were filled with comfort and privilege. Growing up in Vienna, she had access to private tutors, and the family regularly indulged in cultural activities, such as attending the opera and theater, thanks to her father's love for the arts. These experiences sparked Lamarr's interest in performing and set the stage for her future career. Even as a child, Lamarr showed a rebellious streak. She had a strong-willed personality and resisted authority, even sneaking off to watch a movie in defiance of her parents. This early act of defiance marked the beginning of her lifelong passion for cinema. Her world was rocked in the late 1920s when her father unexpectedly passed away. This loss deeply affected Lamarr, bringing an end to her carefree childhood and leaving her mother to raise her alone. Despite this tragedy, Lamarr's ambition for the stage grew stronger. Her mother, recognizing her daughter's interest, encouraged her pursuit of drama. Lamarr started taking acting lessons in her early teens, and soon she was determined to become an actress, even if it meant going against her mother's reservations. By the time she was 16, Lamarr had begun taking small roles in films in Vienna. While her beauty caught the attention of casting directors, her inexperience was often a hindrance. However, Lamarr's determination and self-confidence helped her push forward in the competitive world of film. Lamarr's first step into the film world came with a small, uncredited role in a German silent film. Although the part was insignificant, it gave her an early introduction to the demands of acting and opened her eyes to the controlling nature of directors and producers, something that would become a recurring theme throughout her career. At just 18, Lamarr's big break came when she starred in Ecstasy, 1933, a Czech film that quickly thrust her into the international spotlight. The film was controversial for its explicit content, including a nude swimming scene and an on-screen depiction of her character's orgasm. This shocking material caused an uproar worldwide, making Lamarr the subject of both admiration and scandal. When Ecstasy premiered in Vienna, her mother and stepfather were among the audience members. The graphic scenes, especially Lamarr's nude appearances, were too much for them to handle, and they walked out in disgust. This public disapproval created a rift between Lamarr and her family, and the tension at such a critical point in her career marked the beginning of a strained relationship with her parents. The film faced significant backlash, with many critics calling it indecent and labeling it as smut. However, there were others who praised Lamarr's performance as artistic. Despite the differing opinions, Lamarr quickly became known as the Ecstasy Girl and was branded a scandalous figure from the very start of her career. Her newfound notoriety caught the attention of Fritz Mandl, a wealthy industrialist from a prominent arms manufacturing family. Mandl, an older divorced man, was drawn to the young actress and, despite her initial rejections, aggressively pursued her. Lamarr was captivated by his power and persistence, describing him as darkly compelling. Eventually, she gave in to his advances and agreed to marry him. Mandl insisted that Lamarr abandon her acting career, effectively trapping her in a gilded cage. She became nothing more then his trophy wife, attending extravagant dinners with arms dealers and parading her beauty for his benefit, while he kept a tight grip on her every move. His control extended to the point where he attempted to destroy every copy of ecstasy, further asserting his dominance. Despite the luxurious lifestyle, Lamarr felt suffocated. Mandel's jealous temper and constant surveillance made her feel like a prisoner. His staff monitored her phone calls and movements, leaving her with no privacy. Lamarr would later describe her life with him as a prison of gold, where the material wealth couldn't mask the fear and isolation she endured. At these lavish, military-focused dinners, Lamarr unknowingly began to gather knowledge about advanced weaponry. Although she was there under duress, forced to attend these events, she keenly listened and took mental notes. This exposure to military secrets would prove to be crucial later in her life. Eventually, after years of cruelty, Lamarr knew she had to escape. She attempted to leave twice, but Mandel's vigilant surveillance always thwarted her plans. It wasn't until the sudden death of her father that Lamarr found the resolve to break free for good. She was determined to live her life on her own terms. In a daring move, Lamarr managed to escape from Mandel's watchful grasp. One version of the story suggests that she drugged a maid, disguised herself in the unconscious woman's clothes, and slipped away. In another, she wore all her jewelry under a coat and quietly walked out of a restaurant. Whatever the method, in 1937 she fled Austria for good and headed to London. Once in London, Lamarr wasted no time filing for divorce. Mandel tried to pressure her into returning, but the political instability in Austria, coupled with her strategic planning with legal experts, allowed her to stay in the UK safely. For the first time in years, she was free. While in London, Lamarr met Louis B. Mayer, the influential head of MGM. He recognized her from Ecstasy, the film that had caused such a stir, but also saw the potential for her to become a Hollywood star. However, Mayer's initial offer was a lowball $125 per week, which Lamarr found insulting. Unfazed, Lamarr knew her worth and turned down the offer. She then took matters into her own hands by booking a ticket on the same ship as Mayer, the SS Normandy, and sailed to America. During the voyage, she charmed him, and by the end of the trip, Mayer had quadrupled his offer to $500 per week. At the encouragement of Margaret Mayer, Lewis's wife, Lamarr officially adopted the stage name Hedy Lamarr, partly in tribute to the 1920s actress Barbara Lamarr, who had tragically died young. Though Lamarr wasn't fond of losing her real name, she had little choice but to go along with the change. With war looming over Europe, Lamarr used her Hollywood earnings to rescue her mother, Gertrude, who was Jewish and in danger under the Nazi regime. Thanks to her daughter's financial assistance, Gertrude managed to escape just in time. Lamarr's Hollywood debut came with Algiers, 1938, a film that proved to be a major success. Audiences were captivated the moment she appeared on screen, and critics praised her exotic presence. Co-stars admired her professionalism and commitment to the craft. Soon, Lamarr's star power had Hollywood buzzing, and even billionaire aviation mogul Howard Hughes was taken by her. The two began a brief affair, with Hughes drawn to her intellect as much as her beauty. Lamarr didn't just talk about movies. She also offered suggestions about airplane wing designs based on insights she'd read in nature books, impressing Hughes with her curiosity and depth. MGM often typecast their starlets, but Lamarr was determined to break out of that mold. She refused to be seen as just a glamorous foreigner and grew frustrated with roles that limited her to mere looks. During her downtime, she started tinkering with scientific ideas, unknowingly laying the groundwork for future inventions. At a studio event, Lamarr met George Antheil, a composer and writer who also had a deep interest in mechanics. He quickly recognized her natural aptitude for engineering, and they struck up a bond over conversations about airplane wing technology and military weapons. Their shared curiosity sparked a unique collaboration. In 1939, just a year after making her Hollywood debut, Lamarr married screenwriter Gene Markey. Their decision to wed seemed spontaneous, but the marriage soon faced its challenges. Their busy careers put a strain on their relationship, and Lamarr began to feel the distance between them. Also in 1939, Lamarr adopted a baby boy named James, hoping to give him a stable home with the help of Markey's older man steadiness. However, with her relentless film schedule, Lamarr was often away, and the strain of her commitments affected the family dynamic. As the years passed, Lamarr and Markey grew more distant. Their careers dominated their lives. Markey writing scripts, Lamarr constantly working or attending publicity events. On top of that, Markey showed little interest in her side passion for invention, further widening the gap between them. When World War II broke out in 1939, Lamarr was deeply disturbed by the reports of children lost at sea due to German attacks. Feeling helpless, she wanted to contribute more than just performing for war bonds. She remembered the military knowledge she had picked up during her time with Mandel and decided to apply it in a more direct way. During the early years of World War II, Hedy Lamarr found herself growing increasingly frustrated with the limitations of her life as a Hollywood star. Determined to contribute to the war effort, she struck up a creative partnership with composer George Antheil, an unlikely collaborator who shared her passion for science and innovation. They spent weekends discussing ideas and brainstorming solutions for the war. Together, they developed the concept of frequency hopping, a revolutionary technique that would allow radio-controlled torpedoes to shift between frequencies, thus preventing the enemy from jamming or intercepting the signals. Inspired by Antheil's knowledge of piano rolls and the way they could change frequency, Lamarr and Antheil worked tirelessly, refining their invention and hoping it would make a difference in the war. The pair were so deeply invested in their work that Lamarr, known for her beauty and fame, was now fully immersed in a completely different intellectual world, far from the glamorous life of film studios. By 1942, their persistence led to the filing of a patent for the secret communication system. Their hope was that this invention would be adopted by the military to help the Allies win the war. However, when they presented their invention to the U.S. Navy, their hopes were dashed. The Navy dismissed their work as impractical, and worse, they even labeled Lamarr's invention as alien property. This stinging rejection hit Lamarr hard. As a woman in a male-dominated field, she had hoped her contribution would be recognized, but instead, she was met with ridicule and indifference. Despite the setback, Lamarr refused to be discouraged. Instead of giving up, Lamarr turned to another avenue to support the war effort. Using her star power and public appeal, she focused on raising funds by selling war bonds. Through her efforts, she helped raise millions of dollars for the war, rallying public enthusiasm and ensuring that the Allies had the financial backing they needed. At the same time, Lamarr continued to work on her frequency hopping invention in private. She remained confident that the system had great potential, even if it wasn't appreciated at the time. Back home, her personal life was in turmoil. The pressures of her marriage to Markey, combined with the challenges of raising her adopted son James, led to increasing tensions. There were constant disagreements over finances and how to raise James, and their emotional distance only deepened. As World War II raged on, Lamarr made the decision to divorce Markey. She cited their growing emotional separation, remarking that they had become strangers to one another. Though the divorce was relatively amicable, Lamarr was awarded custody of James, a decision that further demonstrated her strength and resolve in the face of adversity. Not long after her divorce, Lamarr's personal life took a new turn when she reconnected with British actor John Loder. They had met briefly before, but now both were divorced and in a place to start fresh. Their renewed relationship quickly blossomed, and they married in 1943. Lamarr hoped Loder would provide the stability she had been seeking, and that he might become the father figure James needed. Their relationship seemed promising, offering Lamarr the emotional support she had long desired. In the years that followed, Lamarr's family grew. She gave birth to her daughter Denise in 1945, followed by a son Anthony in 1947. After the birth of her children, Lamarr began to struggle with postpartum depression, and her unresolved childhood traumas resurfaced. She decided to see a psychoanalyst to work through her pain, and during her sessions, memories of her controlling first husband Mandel, her father's death, and other painful events came flooding back. For 2 years, she delved into these deeply buried feelings, and when it was over, she found herself yearning for a significant change in her life, a chance to escape the past and reinvent herself. Despite her desire for change, Lamarr's second marriage to John Loder didn't bring the fulfillment she had hoped for. While Loder was kind and mild-mannered, Lamarr felt stifled in the relationship. Her creative and scientific ambitions, including her dream of producing films, were being sidelined. By the late 1940s, she decided to file for divorce, citing her frustration with the lack of intellectual stimulation. She even humorously pointed out that Loder had once fallen asleep at the dinner table while they were having a conversation. The divorce was amicable, and Lamarr retained primary custody of their children. Freed from MGM's control around 1945, Lamarr attempted to break out on her own and ventured into film production. She was determined to carve a path for herself in the industry, but her projects never took off. Her time became consumed by socializing at lavish parties with wealthy potential backers. These distractions led to a series of short-lived affairs, and eventually, Lamarr married once more, this time to a restless man she met in Mexico. Her marriage to Teddy Stauffer, a bandleader turned hotel owner in Acapulco, came just a year or so after her divorce from Loder. However, Stauffer's intense jealousy mirrored the behavior of her first husband, Mandel, and the marriage quickly became chaotic. After just 9 months, Lamarr filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and seeking a fresh start once again. During this turbulent period, Lamarr also briefly dated an actor, whom she referred to as Sam in her memoir. This relationship took a dark turn when Sam created a life-size doll of Lamarr and insisted she watch him be intimate with it. This disturbing act traumatized her for years, and it added to the emotional scars she carried from her past. In 1953, Lamarr seemed to find a sense of stability when she married W. Howard Lee, a Texas oil man. She hoped his wealth and calm demeanor would provide the life of security and peace that she had longed for, allowing her to step away from the Hollywood spotlight and retire. She moved to Houston, eager to leave behind the film industry that had labeled her as difficult. By the mid-1950s, Lamarr had effectively retired from acting, making only rare appearances on screen. She found contentment in her life in Houston, embracing the routine of housewifely duties. Yet, despite the tranquility she sought, her marriage to Howard Lee quickly became fraught with tension, especially when it came to financial disputes. As she settled into this quieter chapter, Lamarr's past began to resurface in unexpected ways. The scientific community rediscovered her secret communication system invention, which involved frequency hopping, and realized just how groundbreaking it was. Unfortunately, the U.S. Navy had already dismissed it years earlier and kept it under wraps over the next decade. Her pioneering idea would be developed into more advanced forms, but Lamarr's contribution had been overlooked. In the midst of her personal struggles, Lamarr faced a terrifying crisis when her younger son Tony nearly died in a car accident. He was rushed to the hospital, and Lamarr remained by his side around the clock. The trauma of nearly losing him triggered painful memories of her father's sudden death, adding emotional strain to an already fragile marriage with Howard Lee. By 1960, the relationship with Lee had become toxic. Accusations of violence flew between them, and the divorce proceedings were messy. Ultimately, the marriage ended in heartbreak for Lamarr, leaving her emotionally drained and financially burdened. This marked her fifth divorce, a painful chapter that she couldn't seem to escape. In a strange turn of events, Lamarr's divorce attorney, Louis J. Boys, became her sixth husband. However, this marriage also ended in divorce after a short time, with Lamarr accusing him of being another gold digger. This final failure in marriage led her to declare that she was done with relationships altogether. No more husbands, she said, firmly closing that chapter of her life. In 1966, Lamarr decided to share her story with the world, publishing her autobiography, Ecstasy and Me. The book shocked readers with revealing details about her ex-husband's affairs and her scientific work. However, she quickly distanced herself from the book, claiming that much of it had been fabricated by ghostwriters. This led to a series of lawsuits, adding yet another layer of drama to her already tumultuous life. By the late 1960s, Lamarr's financial situation had become increasingly dire. In one of the most publicized incidents, she was arrested for shoplifting, though she maintained it was all a misunderstanding. While she was ultimately found not guilty, the scandal further damaged her reputation and added to the growing list of troubles in her life. Faced with the passage of time and the physical effects of aging, Lamarr turned to plastic surgery, undergoing multiple procedures in an attempt to reclaim her youthful appearance. Unfortunately, many of these surgeries went wrong, leaving her features distorted. Ashamed of the results, she withdrew from public life, choosing to remain a distant memory for her fans rather than face the spotlight in her altered state. In private, she often expressed her regret, once saying, "My face has been my curse." As the years went by, Lamarr became more and more reclusive. In her final decades, she rarely left her home, communicating with the outside world only by phone. She even refused visits from her children, afraid they would judge her appearance. Her world grew smaller, and the once glamorous star retreated into isolation. Ironically, while Lamarr sought to distance herself from her past, her invention, which had been dismissed by the military, finally began to gain the recognition it deserved. The U.S. Navy adopted the frequency hopping technology in the 1960s, and the concept laid the foundation for modern technologies like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Decades later, Lamarr and George Antheil were posthumously recognized for their pioneering work on the spread spectrum. Lamarr lived to see the turn of the millennium, determined to reach the year 2000. She passed away quietly in her Florida home on January 19, 2000, at the age of 85. She had requested that her ashes be scattered in the forest near Vienna, symbolically returning to the land of her birth. After Lamarr's death, a shocking discovery was made by her son James. It was revealed that his adoption papers had been falsified. He was actually Lamarr's biological son, conceived during an affair with John Loder. This revelation explained much about Lamarr's distant relationship with him, including why she had sent him away to boarding schools and kept him at arm's length throughout his life. After discovering that he was actually a Loder by birth, James contested Lamarr's will, which left the majority of her estate to her other children, Denise and Tony. His half-siblings disputed his claims, leading to a lengthy legal battle. In the end, James settled for $50,000 instead of the full inheritance, a compromise that closed a painful chapter in the family's history. In her later years, Lamarr expressed frustration that Hollywood had never recognized her intellectual abilities. She famously remarked, "Any girl can be glamorous. All you have to do is stand still and look stupid." Even as she reflected on her film career, Lamarr believed her true achievement was not her stardom, but the groundbreaking role she played in the development of modern wireless communication. Though she received some acknowledgement from the scientific community in her later years, Lamarr was always quick to downplay her legacy in Hollywood. She once humorously said, "Films have a certain place in a certain time period. Technology is forever." She understood that the lasting impact of her invention far outshone her fleeting fame as a 1940s movie star. Lamarr also maintained that her involvement in the controversial 1933 film Ecstasy, which featured nude scenes, was not voluntary. She claimed that the director had blackmailed her into filming those scenes, an experience that deeply shaped her distrust of the darker side of the movie industry. When reflecting on her multiple marriages, Lamarr had no regrets. She saw them all as lessons that shaped her understanding of herself and her need for independence. She once summed up her perspective by saying, "I must live my life for me, not for my men," acknowledging the controlling figures from her first husband Mandel to the actor she called Sam. She continuously sought autonomy, even if it meant experiencing heartbreak along the way. When Lamarr passed away, the world lost not only a Hollywood icon, but also a visionary who, through her frequency-hopping invention, helped lay the foundation for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Despite years of being overshadowed by scandal, her final redemption came after her death. As she once said, "Hope and curiosity about the future seemed better than guarantees." The unknown was always so attractive to me, and still is. Lamarr's life stands as a powerful testament to a brilliant mind trapped in the gilded cage of old Hollywood,